Can I make stupid criminal like faces?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. We'll only post it or share it if it's good. Uh, I have bad
Ah,
TMJ. So how are
TMJ.
you?
Hey,
How's
are
your
you back at home again?
Yeah, I'm back at home. It was weird. I took a trip. Um, but all I did was listen to Vervaeke and Peugeot and in different cities. Like my whole
Yeah, you
life
were
is
3 weeks now, right?
3 weeks.
With friends,
Yeah,
Michael friends.
yeah, college friends, muggles, muggles who don't
You
understand.
still have college friends. Like I don't have college friends anymore.
But do you have friends?
I don't need friends. I have Jesus.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's kind of true. Um, um, so so speaking of the devil, basically, um, when you look at everything, all of culture as devil worship, life just gets way
Yeah,
easier.
that's gonna be
Should
the
we talk?
topic for today's podcast, right? Okay, let's get into it.
Let's get into, no,
Adam,
but do you like this is fundamentally um
did you
it
see
just
Bobby
makes
yet?
what? No, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it probably today. Did you see it?
Where are you gonna see it in the cinema or at
Yeah,
home?
yeah, yeah, in the cinema.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm not sure where I want to spend money for, like whether I want to fund them.
Yeah, but no, whatever. You have to see it. It's an important cultural event. I saw
Okay, I'll
Oppenheimer.
watch it too, and then we make an episode on it.
Yeah, yeah. Then we'll talk about it.
So I'll get there with my notebook and write down all the symbolic meaning of it.
Yeah, we can just pirate it too, and then we can scrub through it and make a podcast of it and talk about each moment. Did you
Will you
see?
will you will you get some like will you get some makeup and stuff when we do the episode?
Yeah, you want me to cosplay as Barbie? I have
Yeah,
no,
sure. Do you have a wig?
not
A
yet, but I can
purple?
find one. I have no
Okay,
problem with that. I have
good.
no, yeah. Um,
Long.
Devil worship. Everything is devil worship. Like that's the default state of everything, and is demonic possession. And then once you see the world that way, just everything becomes easier because then Jesus just becomes the obvious choice. Like it makes it
Very
easier.
high quality content on our podcast.
I'm gonna stop recording so that we just start
No,
taking
no,
this
go on, no, go on. Okay, I'll
seriously.
stop it. I'm getting
No,
serious now.
no, but I mean,
What do you mean?
what I mean is like, okay, I'm trying to parse out how much of this ontology is just my own pride and that I like calling everybody else in the world the devil worshiper. Like that's definitely part of it. But I think it's like, so I was talking to this guy, I think his name was Ryan or something on this other Peugeot group chat, and he was Catholic, and he was like, the good news, like the gospel, the good news was that like every other god was pagan, and you finally didn't have to worship that anymore. Like it was, it was like a huge relief because there was just this like pantheon of pagan gods and false gods to worship, and it was like really confusing and overwhelming. And like the good news, it was like a what a relief.
Less work or what?
Yeah, yeah, it's like less work. Like, I think because I think about like this intersectionality cult and like the wokeism, like it's all these kids like trying to find some like higher principle. And like I think in people I've witnessed who've come back around to like not doing that, it's just such a relief. Like they're just overwhelmed by this like cacophony of ideologies, none of which are really coherent, and they're just bouncing around. And
Yeah.
there's an argument to be made, like even like whatever, even if the Judeo-Christian theology is imperfect, um,
What's
it
imperfect
just
about it?
I think it's perfect. I think it's near perfect. But like the coherence is a relief. Like You know how it's better for somebody in therapy to at least be adhering to some sort of system rather than a hodgepodge of different stuff. Like it's better to be practicing CBT or some specific model than no model. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but when the interesting thing is, after a certain point, like when you're a therapist and you're an experienced therapist, like they become more similar in their way of doing therapy than so whatever, you have one CBT, you have one psychoanalysis, blah blah blah. And the more experienced they are, the more similar they become actually in the way they conduct the therapy. And they're more similar than actually people from different methods.
Yeah, but do you think that's just culminating in dialogos, basically?
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Like,
maybe they're just like a little bit, but yeah, that's the point that I think you're making. So first you need still an established method in order to become methodless at some point. Because yeah.
Okay, no, that's really profound. So well, you need an established method, but it also needs to be a coherent method, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't, because there's any like or Vervaeke's always talking about an ecology of practices, right?
Yeah.
Like you need this is the problem with non-dualism, and this is the problem with Yuval and Harris, is it's just this, it's not really an ontology, right?
I mean, the problem with Harris and they're just I don't know what's wrong with them. Why they're so repressed, first of all.
Wait, what do you mean they're repressed?
Like repressed, like we wrote about it. They're repressed. They're repressing their emotions. I mean, they're like just so cerebral. I mean, not even that's the left hemisphere.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, but repression is one way of putting it. I think they're just dissociated. Like I get the impression, and I hope to talk to Sam Harris someday. So while I talk shit about him, like whatever, like I get the impression he's expressed like he's had a fairly charmed life. Like I know his dad wasn't around, and I'm sure he's had his like fair share of challenges and suffering, but like he's like a hyper intellect who grew up, upper middle class in Los Angeles and discovered non-dualism, and he's pretty divorced from the wide range of human experience. Like he's lived essentially in a bubble, and he's never had to. I get the impression he's never had to depend on a well, one, that he's never had to. This stupid argument that he's never had to depend on a more religious ontology for his life, but more so that like he doesn't understand. Not everybody's a fucking hyper intellect who can.
I don't think that this is the issue actually.
Okay. Well,
I mean, because otherwise I would have been satisfied with that at all as well. I'm not choosing this like when we had our shift, right? And we kind of were reinforcing each other. In some sense, at least you were reinforcing me, and it has. I don't take this as an argument that because like most people don't have the intellect for non-duality or blah blah or the no self thing. Well, that's no argument for me why I would change.
Okay, wait. So I want to get into that, but my argument isn't that most people don't have the intellect for non-duality. I'm saying most people don't have the. It's not even intellect. Most people don't have the like cold hard logic capacity to live in a secular world of reason.
Yeah, I just think it's bullshit. I mean, to rely on reason solely is bullshit anyway. It's Luciferian. No,
yeah, it's Luciferian. I agree.
No, but it's like, I mean, did you listen to this? Okay, I'll send you a video by Saad about Sam Harris. Do you know
it's the one where he's talking. Yeah, where he's talking to Peterson or recently.
No. He's just like Harris blocked him, I think, on Twitter or something, whatever the reason
Yeah,
was. But
because
like
they were friends, and then Gad called him out on the Trump derangement syndrome.
yeah, this,
Yeah.
but not just that. I mean, like he's just like there's a recording by Harris, and then Saad just said makes it obvious what bullshit Harris is actually talking.
Okay, wait.
It doesn't make sense. It just sounds so logical, but it doesn't make sense. It's like he's like saying bullshit basically. Like I mean, if you deconstruct it, it sounds like the worst, like the bad part of Trump, you know, where he's just
Wait, can I? Is it short? My
yeah, I think
message
it's
to
short.
Sam Harris.
Probably.
Here, it's 8 minutes. You want to watch it?
Yeah, let's watch it. Yeah, and then he deconstructs it.
We both know
Yeah.
who won that argument. He's not willing to admit that he lost because his orgiastic pride doesn't allow him to do so. And now what I'm going to do next is play you a roughly 5-minute part. I got it from the Twitter handle of Viva Frey, who got it from someone else. You can follow the link, but it actually comes from a show, a new show, I think, that Sam Harris appeared on, and you see it towards at the end of the clip. You'll get the reference to that show. So it's about a 5-minute clip, and then I'll come back and share some additional insights.
Take it back to COVID for a second. In one way, we got very lucky that COVID wasn't worse than it was, right? You know, it could have been much, much worse. Could have been 10 times as deadly, or 50 times as deadly, and we would have lived through, or many of us wouldn't have lived through something truly awful. But had COVID been worse, just enough worse to really get our attention, to really be undeniable, we would have had a different political conversation around it. There wouldn't have been the same kind of vaccine skepticism. Brett Weinstein would not have been releasing 80 straight podcasts on the dangers of the vaccine if a few variables were changed. I mean, just take that, leave COVID exactly as it is, but just make it preferentially dangerous to children rather than to old people, right? Just flip that around, the variable of age. If kids were dying by the hundreds of thousands from COVID at a rate of whatever it was, 1%, say, but it was pretty much all kids, we would have had a very different experience, right? And the patience, that there would have been no fucking patience for vaccine skepticism, right? And everyone would have recognized that this is not my body, my choice. This is, you're not going to kill my kids with your ignorance, right? And you change one other variable. What if the vaccines actually really did block transmission much better than they in fact did, right? And there was a moment where it was only rational to expect them to block transmission. Turns out they don't do it nearly as much as we would hope at this point. They just shorten the window by which, during which transmission is possible. If they're even doing that now, I don't know. But let's say the vaccines really did block transmission, but then nothing else was, all of the other mishigas about how, untested they are and how dangerous they might be, and the spike protein and blah, blah, blah. Leave all that in place. Just give me a little more transmission blockage and give me kids being preferentially killed or injured by this disease. The obscenity of much of what was said, much of what was said about COVID at the time at which it was said, the conspiracy thinking, the platforming of people who were obviously unwell and unbalanced professionally and mentally around vaccines and their skepticism, the patience for that would have been non-existent, right? And so in some sense we got unlucky at how benign this was and how mysterious it could yet seem, because you could run the argument, well, did he die from COVID or with COVID? He was 80 years old, right? That was the situation we were in. I'm saying that there are changes in the real world that could have happened and could yet happen that would have been immensely clarifying, right? And there would have been no I'm just asking questions routine would have not gotten anyone anywhere worth going, right? And that's I think part of what we're talking about here is, with respect to Trump and with respect to COVID, are just contingent facts of these unique situations, which had they been a little bit different, we wouldn't have fragmented in the same way, right? You dial up the risk of COVID, or if COVID just had been, just made you physically ugly, right? Like if COVID was monkeypox, right? And you had pustules on your face, right? Okay, that's different than the hypothetical experience we all had of, is it a cold? Is it a flu? Is it COVID? Who knows? Like I'm not saying I wish for those things, because those are pictures of a worse suffering for people. But had those things been in place, I just don't think we would have witnessed the same kind of shattering of our society around this particular variable. And again, so I pivot back to the possibility that if we could get a more normal Republican candidate who was not at the center of a personality cult built on misinformation, there could be a swing back to something more recognizable that doesn't seem like a social emergency. But I grant you that I do feel like we are in the presence of a social emergency. It's just, the question is, could something other than talking about it be the process by which we overcome it?
So what do you think of that beautiful logic from Sam Harris. So yesterday when I saw that, and remember the passage that I read you, I get pissed off when I see epistemic, a lack of epistemic humility, when I see someone who is so orgiastically prideful that they will never admit that they are wrong. So this has nothing to do with Sam Harris, because the examples that I was discussing from my book, that specific ancient Greek example, stemmed from my family. So if I can go after my family, I can go after Sam Harris, right? So to the idiots who might say, oh, you're obsessed with Sam Harris, I couldn't give a damn about Sam Harris. I've gone after people that are unbelievably more important to me than Sam Harris, my own flesh and blood. I despise that kind of hubris, faux hubris, arrogance. So here's what I posted yesterday. I'm going to read you a bunch of tweets in reference to that 5-minute clip that you just read. Solid logic from my intellectual hero, the Malibu Meditator. Quote, imagine for a second that tarot cards cured all forms of cancer. People would be less likely to criticize tarot cards then. Also, if grandma had balls, we would have called her fucking grandpa. Then I'll go on. Let's assume that jumping from a building did not kill you because of gravity. If friction operated in the opposite direction to gravity, you could jump off a building and not get hurt. Also, if my aunt had balls, we'd call her Uncle Roscoe, physicist, Malibu Meditator. Then I go on. Imagine for a moment that cancer, I'm just waking up with the exhale app. Imagine for a moment that cancer was nothing more than multiple orgasms. Then we would not be fighting cancer because it would be pleasurable. So all I'm saying is that if my grandma had balls, she'd be called my grandpa, the Malibu Meditator. Let's go on because maybe the examples are not clear to you yet. You are only worried about the lobotomy because it destroys the brain. Let us for a moment presume that a lobotomy was actually a dopamine-releasing orgasm. People would line up for lobotomies. Neurologist, Malibu Meditator. Here's another one, one from, like, if let's say your personal life. So let's say you were just caught cheating on your spouse. Here comes the Malibu Meditator. Imagine for a second you change one variable, such that you imagine that I had not cheated on you. You would not be mad because I had not cheated. So I'm right, because you are mad now when I'm asking you to imagine how things would be different if I had not. You see, if, it was disappointing that the virus only had a 0.03% kill rate. Had it killed a lot more people, and let's say a lot of children, and let's say the vaccine worked the way it was supposed to be, then I would have been right. So you see, there's only every possible variable that I use to be authoritarian. If the reality were different in line with what I said, then I would be right. So you see how, all I'm saying is, if things were different, then they would be different, and then me being wrong would mean that I was right. So I wasn't really wrong. It's just about changing a few variables. You see the tightness of the logic? That's why he's a meditator. He's on a higher plane than the great unwashed vulgar guys like me who think as if we have free will. He knows that there's no such thing as free will, but he also knows that Donald Trump should be executed because he's exercising his free will to be an asshole. It all makes sense. It's all internally, axiomatically coherent. On today's Waking with the Malibu Meditator, I'd like you to take a deep breath and clear your mind. Now, for a moment, imagine that things were different. Then they would be different. And imagine if you were right when in reality you were wrong. Then you'd be right. Exhale. You see why I do what I do? Because I abhor dishonesty. I abhor pride in the 7 deadly sin sense. By the way, I just read a book recently by Paul Offit where he's talking about how many prescriptions in medicine, physicians keep prescribing that course of action even though the data that has come in is astronomically against that prescription. So here, for example, let me just bring it up. I don't have it actually under the laptop here to lift up the laptop. I recently in Florida bought a biography on Linus Pauling. Linus Pauling won 2 Nobel Prizes, one for peace and one in chemistry, both one alone. Only person ever to win 2 Nobel Prizes alone. Later in his career, he argued that vitamin C is really, really good for you. Just keep taking vitamin C supplements. It cures the cold. You'll never have a cold if you take vitamin C. And as Paul Offit, by the way, who's been on my show, he's a virologist, demonstrated in the book, there is endless amount of evidence, meta-analyses and so on, that demonstrate that it's actually false. And no amount of evidence was ever able to cause Linus Pauling to deviate from his belief that you absolutely would be free of colds, of these kinds of viral infections, if you took a high dosage of vitamin C. So he always found a way to argue that the studies were not good. No, it's this, it's that. So therefore, even someone like Linus Pauling was exhibiting grotesque lack of epistemic humility and intellectual honesty, whereby if you see incoming evidence that suggests that you were wrong, stand up and say, hey, I guess I was wrong. I'm better for it now. Let's move on. That's why I weigh in, not just on Sam Harris. I've weighed in on someone who's much closer to me than Sam Harris as a friend, Jordan Peterson. I used to, if you remember, critique him for his Jungian stuff, or critique him for when he's asked about, do you believe in Jesus and so on. He'd become a postmodernist himself. It didn't stop us from being good friends. He didn't block me. He didn't stop following me. He didn't become hateful towards me. As a matter of fact, on one of our shows where I described to him why the concept of synchronicity in Jungian was faulty, he then stopped and said, okay, I guess you got me. And that to me showed great epistemic humility, because even someone like Jordan Peterson, who's a world-renowned public intellectual who is certainly well steeped into his Jungian stuff, was willing to stop and listen to someone else who might be critiquing a favorite position of his. That's what good thinkers do. Okay, so for example, in evolutionary theory, there are many people say, evolutionary psychology is a bunch of unfalsifiable hypotheses. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are many hypotheses that have been posited in evolutionary theory that subsequently people tested them and they did not find the support for them. So that's how science operates. That's how honest intellectual agents operate. So go back, if you'd like, listen to this 5-minute clip of Sam Harris. Just how much gibberish it is, let alone how insane it is. If everything were different, had we been lucky and there would have been a much greater fatality rate and more children died, and if they had, if it made people ugly, well then I would have been right. So I was right. It's just that we were unlucky that people didn't die to the extent to which they would have needed to die for me to be right. It's just unbelievable. Now, this is the same person, by the way, who said, of course I believe in freedom of speech, just not for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is too much of a threat. Of course I believe in presumption of innocence, but just not for Brett Kavanaugh. It's a job interview to go up for the Supreme Court, so we don't have to presume he's innocent. If someone said that 36 years ago, he may or may not, I can't remember, I don't have any proof, he gang raped me, we have to believe that. We can't afford people presumption of innocence, and certainly not for a dangerous guy like Brett Kavanaugh. And oh yeah, of course I believe in honesty and not telling lies and journalistic ethics. But when it came to Hunter Biden's laptop, had social media and journalists reported on that, then Orange Himmler would have become president. And so I completely support them violating every ethical guideline to which I otherwise, waking up, I subscribe to. So I'll throw away every deontological principle that is at the root of a free and enlightened society because, existential threat. It is unbelievable how much a person for whom I had great admiration has completely fallen off the edge. It's got nothing to do with anything personal. I couldn't give a shit about Sam Harris one way or the other. If tomorrow he said, hey, let's go to dinner and talk about it, I'd be happy to go. There's nothing personal. If I can come hard after my closest family members, if they are dishonest, you bet I'm coming after the Malibu Meditator. Have a good day, everybody.
Good.
I mean, it's not just this clip with Sam. Like he's saying a lot of gibberish sometimes, and people don't get it because, I mean, he took 5 minutes, like,
No, it certainly fools me. Like it's just hard to follow because I mean, like if I were trying to steelman his argument, okay, like to steelman his argument. Like, yeah,
it's no good argument. If it's no good argument, if you say if it would be just different, then every reaction would have been different, of course, because it would have been different.
Yeah, because the stakes would have been higher, right? Like,
yeah, I mean it was from the beginning clear. I mean, of course, you would have a different reaction. I mean, of course, you would be probably more likely to take some risk in taking a vaccine if the virus would have been more deadlier. Of course. I mean, that's simple. But because you knew, I mean, for example, in my case, I had the virus. It did nothing to me. I could, like, by the knowledge we have about viruses, I could, I could assume that the next time I get it, it probably will even be less. Will even have a less impact on me than the first time. So why would I take a fucking vaccine? I actually had to take one, and the reaction from the vaccine was stronger than the one from the virus. But okay, yeah, very simple.
Yeah, so he's full of shit.
It's just bullshit. Yeah, I mean, of course, if children would die, you would do more. Yeah, of course.
What I think, like, this is me regressing, but I think my issue with I'm lumping together like Sam and Yuval. Actually, they're the closest, like, whatever Malibu meditator hyper intellects. Like, if you just pay attention to the vibe, like, you can tell something's off. Like, the vibe in the room is just so divorced from like Peterson's vibe is way stronger, right?
Yeah, sure, it's stronger. Yeah,
like
because Peterson's whole being is vibrating with what he's
that's
saying.
What I mean. It's incarnate.
Right? Yeah, it's incarnate.
That's it. That's the actual word, and that incarnate.
I mean, come on. When Yuval said that there was nothing else like feminism that made so much, like, led to so much change without violence, blah blah blah. I mean, does he know the history of feminism? Does he really think that all those changes that apparently seemed like, okay, we had like these changes due to feminism, was because of the stupid fucking feminist writers and protesters on the street? No, of course it did not happen because of them. It's just because society changed, because of technological advancements, because of changes. It was not because of feminism. I mean, does he know anything about feminism? Do you know them? How's she called? Leolengo. What's her name? The actual feminist or the factual feminist? Do you know her?
I don't know her. What?
You should watch her. The factual feminist.
Factual feminist.
Oh,
her? Yeah. I watch her. What's her name?
I know this the other one. This one she's also good. The Sommer. She's called Sommer, but Fiamengo. She wrote several books about feminism as well.
Wait, how do you spell it?
Studio P. Janice Fiamengo.
Wow, I've never heard of. Oh, wait. Janice Fiamengo? Yeah. Oh, this is a completely different person. I've never heard of her. I'll check it out. But yeah, Yuval, like, I mean, it's just I think like what the epistemic arrogance of Yuval and Harris is just so palpable. Like the vibe. No, like Peterson is prone to the Peterson is prone to like is just as fallible. I feel like, right? Like he's just as fallible to his own politics and claims to knowledge, but like he's actively playing the role of the prophet. Like it's
no, but I have to say, for example, when Harris and Peterson were talking to each other, okay, like the last Sam Harris you sent me when he talked about Peterson, right? Did you send it to me? Yeah. So I mean, for me, it feels like when Sam is saying something about Peterson, he doesn't really get it, and it's still that when Peterson says something about Sam, he also doesn't really get him. Like still, like years after they had the dialogue, and it seemed that I get both of them more than they get each other.
No, I've always felt that way about both of them. Though I do feel like
they're both kind of trapped.
Well, I feel like Peterson understands Sam's worldview more than Sam understands Peterson.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Like,
but still not as good as probably we both do, because we went to some Vipassana retreat. We have some like connection to this non-dual stuff and no self and
well, but I think one of the major holes in the Sam Harris ontology, you know, the recipe thing, right? He's like, you can read into, you've read this, right? He takes like a Hawaiian recipe.
Yeah. No, but can I just make a side step actually what I wanted to say? Because like when he's saying, okay, like in this interview you sent me, like he's saying, he understands the need for religion, and he also differs from Dawkins, because Dawkins just as a supplement, he has science to take over the religious enterprise. But he's not like this. He's like, he understands that, you know, when your child is sick or when it's dying or blah blah blah, you need more than science. And he offers more in his regards. Like he thinks he offers more, but he's not like Peterson. Peterson wants to go back to the old narrative and old stories and the old like blah blah blah. And I don't think that's the thing. No, he doesn't get him at all. And I also don't understand. I think he doesn't get it that Peterson is not about like, okay, this is the real story. Peterson is analyzing like why, or it's like the same with Pashot, what you were saying, like they're seeing the structure of reality, like they're becoming more transparent, or it's like physicism for the phenomenological plane,
right?
Like what physics does in like the scientific point of view, like okay, we dissect matter and blah 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 and make experiments. They are kind of doing for the phenomenological plane. Like finding the patterns.
Well, they're excavating the patterns, and and it's working and it's important, and it's this active wrestling match. Like it's just so obvious to me that, or Sam thinks that Peterson's being prescriptive. He's not. Sam is the one who's prescriptive, right? Sam is like, this is the way you need to see the world. This is a better way of seeing the world. And Peterson's, it's clear that there's just much more epistemic humility on behalf of Peterson, because he's like, he's clearly bewildered. He doesn't.
No, but I mean, this actually speaks that Peterson is much more right hemisphere. Like what you said, epistemic humility, like openness to like interpretation, novelty, and the unknown actually. Like for Sam, it's much more clear and fixed. Like I mean, just this assumption. I mean, I didn't read the book. I have to say, I just read actually Waking Up by Sam. But like this, the what is it called? Like where he wants to make the foundation of morality and science,
the moral landscape.
Yeah, it's just absurd that you make a graph and and it's like measure it and like
it's insane. But so. Well, one of the fundamental misunderstandings Harris has is when he goes through this recipe analogy, right? It's like he takes a recipe from the book and then he reads it symbolically. And he doesn't understand that first he doesn't understand it's profound that can appeal to us in some way. Like it's not arbitrary stupidity. Like the fact that you can read the recipe that way should indicate something more to you than that we're stupid. It should indicate to you that there's something really interesting going on. And then two, that you can't read every recipe that way. Like if you try to do that to the whole recipe book, you're not going to really get a coherent thing. Like the symbols have to repeat themselves across a canon, and that which sticks is actually makes sense. Like you I can't say that like the duck in the cupboard represent like the morality of not stealing. Like I can make all sorts of like weird symbolic analogies, and some do make sense and some don't, right? Like I can't just say like my iPhone represents the bond between husband and wife. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense, right? Like this certain symbols make more sense than others. And like when he reads the recipe, the symbols he's extracting aren't arbitrary. He's like, when the salt represents blackness and like the salt, the pepper represents blackness and the salt represents possibility. It's like there was a limited range of metaphors you could have chosen there. Like he couldn't have just like arbitrarily assigned moral moral values or principles to everything in that text. So he doesn't understand that like the symbology is iterative and it occurs across a canon and it gronks like deep in the subcortical structures. Like it's such a shallow understanding of what's happening in our symbolic thinking. And I mean, it's just really adolescent. Like it's just like the dismissive tone that a 13-year-old atheist has. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything new there, but what was I going to say? I think the fundamental criticism is you can't, like, he's constantly frustrated, right? He's constantly frustrated with, like, why don't you just see it this way? And it's clearly because people can't see it this way. They're not, like, I shouldn't say they're not programmed. Like, the hardware isn't designed for that.
But I mean, I get him. I mean, I can emulate him. I can understand or how you could possibly see the world like this.
No, yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get it.
I mean,
too.
I was like this.
There.
I was like
there for
this.
years. Yeah, we were both
Yeah,
there.
I was like Harris. But for me, like, I mean, I wouldn't say Peterson, but at least the worldview you have now and the changing stuff, I think is a progression from this.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Well, I mean,
it's like, I mean, what Harris is like what Wilbur calls flatland. It's like, or or in spiral dynamics, or how is it called? It's like, yeah, it's the rational plane. Okay, before the rational, you have the mythical, and before the mythical, you have the magical and stuff. Yeah,
you're
okay,
talking about integral theory. Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe in it, but it's just a reference now. I mean, I think they're better models, but like where Harris is, it's like kind of flatland.
Yeah,
it's and
like, but the point is, it stops working. Like
I mean, it's like did you read the pages I sent you from the Matter with Things?
Yeah, the ones about the teleology of genes.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. I mean, I think most biologists and Harris wouldn't go that far,
right?
To see like, it's like the teleology of, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean, if the emperor is growing and it's like, I mean, what every second, how many thousand brain cells are being created, or millions?
It's millions.
Yeah, every fucking second for 9 months. It's like, there are more connections in the brain than stars in the universe, and there are more stars in the universe than sandcorns on fucking planet Earth. And okay, I mean, this you can argue, blah. Okay, you can describe this scientifically, but okay, you also can probably say, okay, when the sperm hits the eggs, that there's a light, that there are explanations for this and for this. But the point is, like, I mean, from the part I read, I mean, of course, I'm not no fucking biologist, but like, it's not evident that, I mean, first of all, the DNA is no ball plan, it's no blueprint. The information is somewhere else, and it's most likely like in the organism. There has to be a whole, like, there has to be something that the whole organism is like one. And how does this come about? Like, how does the cell know that it's like this part of this whole? And I mean, there's no scientific explanation for this. And also all this process is like the interlocking of everything. It's like interlocked. It's not that there's processes influencing each other, but it's like myriads of connections and processes, and that the whole system still stays stable and doesn't go out of whack and blah 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 blah. So I mean, it's pretty well written. I mean, I can't put it like in perfect words now, that like, but you get the point, right? And basically what he's saying there, it's no machine. I mean, I'm not sure whether you can go as far. I mean, this is the intuition at least I myself had once, why there can never be AI, like true AI, like with like general intelligence, or like something more than a Turing machine. And why I also think Penrose is right. It's like do you know in mathematics, right? There is like, I mean, there are people arguing that infinity is not being needed, or at least there's countable infinity and uncountable infinity. You know the difference? So you have the interval between 0 and 1, right? And okay, there's 1/2, there's 1/4, there's 1/8, there's one blah blah. So there are infinitely many numbers you can write as ratios in between 0 and 1. But then there's the continuum hypothesis, and then there are mathematicians, I think nowadays, that also think, okay, there's a way with like so there are different levels of infinity, and there are infinitely many infinities between the countable numbers and the non-countable numbers. So in between there are infinitely many layers of infinities. So you just take all the countable numbers and make the Potenzmenge, how's it called? Potenzmenge. Power set. You know power set?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you have a set which is infinite, and you take the power set, like this infinity is more than the infinity.
Yeah, right. There's infinities bigger than other infinities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. But so the point is, okay, with a Turing machine or a computer, apparently, first of all, you can't even reach like the normal infinity, the first order infinity, because you would need infinitely many. But who says that the real universe isn't like infinite, like that there is a continuum hypothesis? I mean, in some sense, like if you take quantum mechanics, it's actually discrete. If like because you have like the smallest form of matter is like the Heisenberg, or what is it called? The Planck length.
The Planck.
It's like 10 up minus 43 or something. Planck length. The smallest.
The smallest like angstrom unit.
Yeah, whatever. But there was like something I thought about, like
okay, why... but we're talking about like autopoietic systems, right? That the integrity of a biological whole is just like exponentially more complicated than a machine can ever.
Yeah, I mean, but look, I mean, in McGilchrist things, I mean, his book is actually all about there are no things in some sense. Like in reality, there are no things.
Like there are no discrete objects?
Yeah, because I mean, a discrete object could be labeled as thing.
Right. Okay. That's fine. That's essentially non-dualism, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, how could you implement something? How can you create the model of the world, of the universe in a computer? That's my thing now, which I'm thinking. Because if you can't, how can you assume that it can create intelligence? Maybe intelligence, like a prerequisite for intelligence, is the like more than Turing machine.
Wait. I think we're
so
talking.
It's non-computable.
So we're talking about consciousness here. We're talking about like the machines are already intelligible, right? Like the language models are intelligible.
Yeah,
but they're
intelligible.
Not, they're not possessing
Yeah, but they don't. But it's still what I mean. It's like, okay, they're still algorithms. It's still a cooking book. It's like still algorithm. It's still predictable. It's still, you know, I mean, not predictable, but it's like you can deduce it somehow. Blah blah blah. The thing is, like, are we humans? It's like also McGilchrist. I heard him in a podcast today. It's like he thinks that there, like, a lot of philosophers are kind of on the schizotypal how's it called, spectrum, like, especially those. And then he mentions, I think, who is it, like, with the, isn't it Chalmers with the conscious zombies, or the not the conscious zombies, like the where we have philosophical zombies.
The guy who worked with Vervaeke, or
no, it's like, you know, but you know the philosophical zombies, right? I mean, the question is, like, if we are computers and everything is just, you know, just determined, and, you know, it's just electrical discharges, blah blah, that would happen by the laws of nature anyway. Why are we conscious at all? Blah. This is like the hard problem of consciousness. What?
Yeah. Okay. Wait. What are you getting at here? That you don't think the okay? So philosophers may have some sort of benign schizotypy.
That's what Gilchrist is saying.
Yeah, and that's divergent, like, from me.
I mean, for him, it's like, just, I mean, there are philosophers which think that consciousness doesn't exist. Dennett, for example, to some extent.
What the hell? What does that even mean?
That's, you just don't understand that if you're like on the schizotypal spectrum. Yeah, he thinks it's an illusion. It doesn't exist.
Like, it doesn't exist in a material way.
No,
like,
it's
the same way.
It's
same
just,
way the Garden of Eden doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's a story we tell ourselves. I don't know what it means.
Dude, you've lost me. We were just talking about.
I mean, it's like it sounds so stupid, because, like, we just have the illusion that we have consciousness, but who has the illusion? Like, I mean, it's still a conscious illusion, right? But whatever. That's the problem. Why it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I feel like I can take that apart, like, very easily. Like, there needs to be awareness.
I had to say, when I had, like, very strong depersonalization, I could understand it to some extent, what he could mean, like, because it felt like I was unconscious in some sense, like there was no, you know what I mean? It's like I was conscious, but also not.
I think I've had experiences like that, where it's like there is consciousness, but it's not mine, and it's not.
There's no content somehow. It's like just happen and everything, and whatever. It's like, really. Do you know the Cotta delusion and the Capgras syndrome?
No, wait, that.
I hope I don't mix them up, but I think the Capgras syndrome is, I think, or is it the Cotta delusion? I think the Capgras syndrome, I don't know which one is which. But one is like it's a syndrome where people think they're dead, and you cannot convince them of the opposite. They died already. They're dead. Then you tell them, but you're still talking to me. You cannot be dead. No, I'm dead. Like, and then they think they're dead. Whatever, and you can't convince them of the opposite. The Cotta delusion is like that everybody's an imposter, like your mom. Like,
right.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like my mom, but it's not my mom. It's an imposter. They feel like it's, like, not real. It's like somebody else. And both of those syndromes are very similar to very extreme depersonalization, I would say, because depersonalization goes into the same direction somehow. Like, if you have really severe depersonalization, it's like, you know, you've the sense of, you know, it's your mom, but
Eunice.
It's also like when depersonalized people look in the mirror, they know it's them, but it doesn't feel like them.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense for the cuts, because then the way you look at your mom, it's like, you know, it's her, but it doesn't feel like her.
Yeah,
and so it's
because the feeling tone is gone.
Right.
And also you feel like as if you already died, you're just watching your life from the grave or something, or like my friend,
it's non-participatory with that, right? You're not
yeah,
participating.
yeah, you're
Okay,
very
so
distant.
yeah, it's happening,
You're
but
very
you're not
out there.
participating in it.
Yeah,
Okay,
just an
so
unfolding of happening, but there is no self anymore partaking in this whole theater play.
and so is that equivalent to saying that consciousness is an illusion?
I mean, I think Dennett or somebody like this, or people claiming something like this, maybe are kind of as on a spectrum, like he calls it schizotypal,
Yeah.
where it might feel like it, and then people always make ontologies about the matter of mind or what the mind is, like from their person. I mean, they cannot conceive that different like people in different diagnoses or whatever experience the world pretty differently.
Yeah. But what's the point?
I mean, I think this is also the mistake Sam Harris is doing, actually. This is also like, of course, if you go to a cave for 10 years and meditate and don't talk to anybody, and then finally maybe you also lose your inner monologue, and then you claim this is the real state. No,
Yeah,
it's
well,
just
no.
it's like conditioned the
state.
same way, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like
a state.
like they're autistic people, there's schizophrenic people, there are bipolar people, there are whatever, and each of them is like very different again, and then you have blah blah blah. So the way we experience the world, like ontologically, like on a very deep level, on an existential feeling level, on a being in the world level, in Dasein and stuff, is like, I mean, it's absurd to assume, okay, because I meditated, which like I use a practice of meditation, which is very defined, like precise method of how I attend to the world. Like, okay, first you start with the nostrils or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or I make like, of course, this is kind of changing my way of how I'm like being in the world, and then claiming this type of being is like the real type, or it's like more close ontological. It has like I mean, Sam is doing this. He's saying, okay, this is a higher ontology, like more true than. So if I experience the world without the filter of a certain particular kind of self or whatever, it's more true, which is bullshit. You cannot do that.
No, I agree with that. And
it's
so
just that it's also trained. You trained your attention and mind to just neglect this or whatever, or just like let this fade out, that you are more attuned.
Yeah. So well, I mean, then we can get to some more practical or prosaic existential problems there with the Sam Harris ontology. Like it comes back to, okay, one, I'm open to the notion.
Can I just say something to this? Because I think this is essential. I think this is the difference also between. I'm not sure whether Peterson or Vervaeke or Shaw would say that, but let's say in Christianity, for example, today I did GAE with Ellie and Mons, and in the morning I was dancing for 2 hours, and by dancing for 2 hours, I was shaking, I was like moving, and I think like everything got loose and my muscle opened up, and I got super relaxed. And when I'm so relaxed, I just let myself go, and then at the end, like I'm so open, like for me it's easier to like imagine things or go into the imaginary realm, and it feels like what I told you, like the Holy Spirit. It feels like something is descending down on me, but it's still like metaphorically speaking again. And I visualize the presence of God, or I call it the presence of God. Of course, it's a sensation in my body, and I could do the Buddhist thing and say, okay, it's a sensation, it's coming and going, and blah blah blah. But okay, I'll interpret it this way, and I have like this image of Jesus, or I'm dancing in the presence of God, or when I was doing GAE, I was blah blah. Okay, so but see, in this ontology, like if I did GAE, I could incorporate it into this kind of worldview. It's like the Holy Spirit. It's like there's always something outside of me that's much bigger than me, and this is the truth, like capital T, like big truth. And I will never be able to completely comprehend it. And it's like it's more like this thing that kind of reshapes me and like gives rebirth to myself and destroys like my non-well adapted parts of me. And it's like and it's like it gives me this humility. It's like I think that's why humility is like the top rank virtue, actually. Like as he said, like Satan surpasses us in every virtue, but not humility.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like completely contrary to what Sam is doing. He's like, I have a state of mind that's ontologically true.
Right, right.
No,
right.
it can never be ontologically true.
Well, okay. So
You
there's
always,
a few...
because otherwise, if it is, then you narrow down. Like you got stuck in something. You're not open with reciprocity to the being, or whatever you want to call it, or to the ongoing process of life.
Well, you see that his claim there is incongruent with his actual behavior, because, okay, so I'm open to the possibility, and I live as though there's a possibility that there is a perfect pattern or a perfect mode of being. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but like it seems to be indicated in the theology that there is a perfect mode of being, and ultimately it's in relation to some ineffable principle, God, that you can never understand, but you can know, right? You can know it incarnate. Like it can come down and visit you, and you can know it, but you can never...
aspects of it, and like it depends on the context and the context you're in and your personal history. And you don't get rid of your personal history. You don't get rid of your personhood. You don't get rid of your narrative. You don't need to. There's no need for that.
Right. And so
because you're always embedded in it anyway. You cannot escape it. It's like you're in it.
Yeah, right. So and Peugeot talks about theosis is like we're supposed to become as godlike as we can be, and that's part of that is embodying the fullness of our unique personality, right? It's to its absolute wholeness. It's not doing away with that. And so, but the funny thing about Sam Harris non-dual ontology, if the state of seeing through the illusory self is really the ultimate mode of being, that's so incongruent with how he actually acts, because he's a real moral agent in the world. There's no doubt he cares about being himself and about engaging with the world. And he claims that he's acting that way out of reason, which is obviously...
But he's split. He doesn't care because like he's filled with the care. He thinks because it's rational.
That's why exactly. He cares.
It doesn't come from his heart.
He thinks that. But the point being that like if you actually believe non-dual ontology, like if you actually believe the alleviation of suffering through the recognition of no self is the ultimate pattern of being, then the argument to be made is just that like we all need to fuck off to monasteries, right? Like there's no...
but that's what they think. But that's what they believe.
There's nothing within that ontology that indicates that there should be any participatory mode in the world, right?
But that's what they believe. I mean, if
that's what they claim to believe, but then when you like
but they do.
Well,
in Theravada Buddhism, it's the ultimate goal is like enlightenment and not getting children. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's the liberation of all being. And
you shouldn't get children. Buddha said you shouldn't get children.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it's
just producing suffering.
So it's antinatalist. Buddhism is antinatalist.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I've always gotten that vibe, but explicitly so.
I mean, there are different readings, of course, but like Buddha explicitly stated in the how's it called, the sutras. I mean, he's saying don't produce children because they're like sown like this, like the weed anyway. And
so fuck that. Fuck the whole enterprise. Like.
But of course, I mean, did you listen to this guy I sent you, this podcast?
The monk who...
the monk who fucked everybody.
No, I didn't finish it, but
he talks about like the history of how Buddhism got to Tibet.
I listened to some of it.
And then how it changed because of they had like their kind of... It's like the same in Japan, right? Japan, like they had like Shintoism there with the ghosts and Zen mixed up with that. And in Tibet, there was also like kind of a pagan religion before, and Buddhism actually mixed up with that. And they changed like that. It's like he describes it like so the monks got a lot of money by travel. It took like 7 years back then to go down to India and collect these books and bring them back to Tibet. And and they were like keenly waiting for it to hear this get new material. And he makes a parallel to the US, like when the US got like new material and like, you know, the esoteric scene there was like, yeah, esoteric knowledge, and then they kind of changed it, like the people who brought it there changed it according to their whatever, and it became more like magical, like Tibetan Buddhism is much more magical, and yeah, that changed basically quite much. Like I mean of course, like Tibetan Buddhism is very different to Theravada Buddhism.
Yeah.
But the Theravada style is, yeah, I mean, it's pretty like very much like Vipassana and Don't Get Children, and just like Harari is and Harris is. But Harris also did some like how's it called, Dzogchen training. Like the Tibetan Buddhism is like much more like, yeah, Tibetan Buddhism is like more like instant enlightenment. I mean, there are parts of it. There was
it's direct path.
Yeah. It's like the diamond bath and the it's like also more tantric and nature. It's like
but so I mean, are you open? Here's the question. Okay, so like my fundamental flaw in the Sam Harris ontology, if you read like The End of Faith, is he simultaneously believes all religions have one central message, which is the realization of non-duality. And then he goes on to
I didn't read that. I didn't read this book, but if you're saying that's just bullshit.
No, but you don't even need to read his book. He says that kind of shit all the time. He's like, you know, the essential spiritual insight is non-duality, which is just the anti-truth. Like and but then at the same time he's like hypercritical of Islam because it's obviously does not have the same central message as other religions. But are you open to the notion that there is a perfect mode of being? That there is an absolute pattern?
What I believe is basically, I mean, when I had the no self and even the positive no self and the blissful state and stuff, it feels, I'm pretty sure when we die we will end up there, all of us.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And that I don't think that there's I'm not so sure actually. Now while I'm saying it, I'm not feeling 100% certain, but it's like I don't think that there's reincarnation. I'm not sure. Maybe there is, but I mean, for me, it's more like when as because I'm born human, I think I should make best out of like being human.
Yeah.
And why should I mean, I understand why you should die before you die, but in order to fully live, actually, I think this is like you shouldn't just you should die before you die to fully live. I mean, this is the only reason to fully live. I mean,
right.
Before you really die.
right. Okay, but the what I mean by like, you know, the great Tao is when you exist in the zone of proximal development, right? When you're like constantly one foot on the edge of chaos and order, and that's like the perfect mode of being.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this exists. Yeah.
Okay, I think that exists.
But I mean, I still think it's like that's why I appreciate process philosophy so much. I think, like, according to this context right now for you, there might be a maximal point there, which is not the best way you could be. Maybe like in the future it gets better, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think it's like a state that stays. It's no stasis. It's like flow.
Yeah, always. No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like hot flow.
Yeah,
is the perfect mode of being.
Yeah,
and it's better for experience, for phenomenological reasons, and it's better for moral reasons.
Yeah,
right. Like that, I fundamentally believe that, right?
In a sense, this is also where inside and outside merge. I think because we are built in such a way that what we experience, I mean, that's the orientation reflects what Peterson is talking about with Dawkins and stuff.
Yeah,
like we are built that where meaning is maximal is like on this order between, and where meaning is maximal is also best for the outside world, not just for the inside.
Right, and that's guided by some metaphysical compass. And the point there, the point there is that, God damn it, it's participatory, right? It's a mode of being that's participatory. And Harris doesn't that's the fundamental thing that I think is missing.
Yeah, he's the opposite to some extent. Like I mean, this whole meditation kind of aims like,
it's
you should not,
perspectival.
yeah, it's perspectival, yeah, but you should not be like, I mean, you shouldn't like, you know, your family is, or whatever. Also, this meditation build up he does sometimes, it's like, yeah, it's always your reaction to the world, and I mean, I get it. You shouldn't react. You shouldn't just blah. But it's like, it's also the world. It's not just you. Like,
Right.
I mean, you know, sometimes they have like this. I think this is a trap, actually. It's, you know, it's like your mind, or it's just about how your mind reacts. No, it's not just how your mind reacts. Sometimes you should do something to change the circumstances.
Right.
It's like, it's so simple. Like, I mean, why do people? I mean, there are people like, okay, their job is too stupid for their intelligence, right? And their spouse doesn't fit to them, and then you read those books, and then you think, it's just, I have to just meditate more. No, you just should find a job that's suited for you, and you just should find a girl that's suited for you, and your worldview would look completely different without meditation or anything of this.
Yeah. So, but the way to, I mean,
sorry to just finish it up. It's like, because you're not fulfilling your potential in the world, and that's why you feel miserable.
Exactly.
And Harris is not like doesn't address this at all.
Yeah, no, exactly.
At all,
and
nothing.
And the way to orient yourself, the way to know how to, like, the way to change your behavior, actually, when you're existing optimally, when your perspective is optimal, is not based on, like, yes, you get reactive cues from your mind and body in the outside environment, but it's by orienting, and like, this sounds so obvious and I'm clearly indoctrinated by Peterson, but it's like orienting yourself towards that which is most meaningful, right?
Yeah,
that is
totally.
I mean, I think that is the perfect mode of being, more or less, or that's fundamental to it. And
I also think it's so important. You still, for example, they always say, I mean, even Frankl says this, right? Between stimulus and response, there's this time gap, and you probably learn this with meditation, that it gets bigger, and you shouldn't immediately react in the sense that you should make an action, but you still should be in tune with all your emotionality, like how your emotional response is to certain situations, because they are the most important cue which direction to go.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, if you lose this, like, because if you kind of, and this can happen with meditation. I'm not saying that Sam or whatever that they want this to happen. They definitely don't want this to happen. But you can lose touch of what you really feel.
DP, right? Like, and
people, I mean, people dissociate, or it's like at least, or spiritual bypass, or blah blah blah. I mean, you even can bliss out while your actual self might feel anger, but you know, it's just, you know, part of the brain is just shut off or whatever. It kind of, I don't know what's happening there, but
so to the point being, of course, the signals you're getting from your body mind are completely valid and useful, and
I mean, the gap can become too big between stimulus and response.
Well, it can.
You still should feel it. You still should feel the motion in your body.
Right. So when you proximately orient yourself towards meaning, that's actually, like, that's orthodoxy, right? It's right worship, right? It's that's what it is, though, right? Like, it's orienting yourself constantly towards the highest principle, and then a proper hierarchy, like, populates itself under that. And what do you
and I love the spirit of Peterson.
I'm inhabited, but here's the thing. The spirit of Peterson isn't the spirit of Peterson. It's the fucking logos. Like we're gonna live in an intellectual environment where like there's so many young intellectuals and whatever, young guys who are all doing this shit, like talking about the government, and it's, everybody's gonna be like, oh, they're just like Peterson stands, but they're not. They're logos stands.
Yeah, because the Holy Ghost is working through Peterson.
Yeah, it is, but through all of us, and we participate in the body, right?
Yeah, with the body of Christ.
We do.
But this concept I also like, actually, the body of Christ and stuff.
No, but it's the funny thing about all this shit of moving to a theological ontology is nothing in my life has ever made more sense to me.
No, I understand. But I mean,
Like,
but for example, because I mean, sorry, just to make a sidestep again, but like, okay, like when they said like, oh, the concept of memes, now we understand, we just created the concept of memes. I mean, the fucking Catholics had this like for several hundred years. They were speaking about the body of Christ. I mean, there's nothing else but the memes.
wait. So memes are just an emergent. We talked about this in the that symbolic world group I was in the video.
I mean, look, when Lex
memes are just
Fridman and Harari were talking, like when you no pop the association in my mind that Fridman is like a 5-year-old boy or whatever, but like he said, when it's the ideas using us and not us the ideas or something or whatever. Yeah. I mean, this is like the body of Christ or whatever. It's like
no, that's it. That's exactly that. So memes are just an emergent symbology, right? And we'll see over time, over the next 50 years, certain memes will stick around, right? And those are archetypal, and they're inevitably going to express they're going to express metaphysical truths, right? You participate in the meme, you insert your narrative.
Look, we have to get deeper into these topics of meme anyway. We should make a whole episode about this because like McGilchrist is writing about it a little bit too in the life sciences, and there's also like this really good where Brad Weinstein is talking to Dawkins about extended phenotypes, because he thinks that memes are not on a different plane than biology, because they made this genes are biological and memes are cultural.
Genes are instantiated information. They're incarnate information. And
but Weinstein says that it's not a disjunction or a different plane. It's like
it's
the
not.
same.
It's still embodied. Like when you enact the archetype of a king, right? Like there's
I mean, Weinstein goes even further and says they have like for example, that the Catholic Church, that they had like the priests that didn't procreate, which had something good for the legacy or something, or lineage. For the
lineage is not in that.
So he has like a lot of good arguments for
Well, it's hard to turn the corner in understanding that the meme
which bridges the gap, like what Peterson is all, because Peterson is always actually using. I mean, did you read Maps of Meaning? Because like he's like coming from 4 angles, right? And he's also one really foundational thing he's always using for like what he also says Piaget's mission was like he's mainly using actually evolutionary biology to describe how the patterns of religion emerge. Which is also Brad Weinstein is doing the same actually. I think little bit more crude, and I mean a little bit more like Sam Harris style, like like coming from the other way around, upside down.
Or emergence.
But I mean like in the sense like Peterson is like very much into phenomenology actually, which I think is the right point of starting from the beginning.
Right.
It's like the starting when you're a child, you start just by phenomenology, and then you adopt like concepts which you didn't experience yourself, and which you don't have like a lived experience with, and then you're in a plane that's so disembodied.
Well, see, the idea is that, right, like the Maps of Meaning thing is, what makes this difference is we can now take that semantic knowledge and embody it, right? Like someone can describe to you a pattern of being that's been excavated by other people, and then you can bring it into your motor sensory cortex, right?
But I don't think it's being brought into it. It's just revealed. It's like a revelation.
It's revealed in the agent I'm talking. When I say other people have excavated it, no, it's eminent, right? Well, it's both. It's eminent and emergent.
Yeah, it's eminent both.
Yeah. And so that motive, like, I wonder if this is just like I think what I'm trying to do now as I shift to a theological ontology is just constantly remind myself that the participation in the body is non-metaphorical, right? It's the realest thing there is. And I've been programmed to believe that, like, the weird thing is, like, we think conceptual gravity is real. Like, we think conceptual science is real. And like the argument the new atheists make for this is like even new earth creationists use their cell phones, right? Like they're living in an embodied, like the science is like very real here. And so I guess the needle I'm trying to thread here is, even when you're operating in the like secular rationalist new atheist worldview, there's still this merging of heaven and earth, right? Like that is the scientific, and like when you take some theory about black holes or whatever and assume it is fundamentally real, that's you're having faith that it's incarnate as well, even if you haven't witnessed it. Like if the theory validates it and you like really exist in that scientism, like what that is you having faith in the physical reality of the theory.
Yeah.
And
exactly. But mathematicians are a little bit different. But yeah.
Well, in what sense? That they.
Well, for example, the physical universe works in a specific type of mathematics, which is just one type of mathematics, and there are conceivable universes that probably are not being instantiated by like real stuff.
Right, but the alternate mathematics is coherent theoretically.
I don't know, but no,
what?
because it's not. I mean, it cannot be proven. It has been proven that it can't be proven.
Okay, yeah, I understand. In theory, so well, I mean, I think that's
okay. Well, so how there's this saying this. Okay. We know that God exists because mathematics is consistent, and we know the devil exists because we cannot prove the consistency. What's the consist?
That's too advanced for me.
No, it's very simple. We know that God exists because mathematics is consistent, and we know that the devil exists because we cannot prove the
consistency.
From Andrew Weil? Yeah, cannot prove the consistency, yeah.
Well, but we cannot understand the consistency, but we can know it.
I mean, we don't know whether it's consistent, but but if it wouldn't be consistent, we probably would have found out already, because it wouldn't work, right? But it works.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We can know it, like we can know it experientially. We can participate in it,
but we cannot prove it.
And but the proving is propositional, right? I think that what's happening in me right now.
Yeah, but this is also what, I mean, in some sense, sorry to interrupt you, but this is also what Penrose to some extent means when he speaks. I mean, he's no philosopher, blah blah, but when he speaks about understanding, what he means is understanding is non-propositional. So when you talk about but when you talk about mathematics and formal logic systems and axioms, and it's equivalent to Turing machines, it's just propositional. So how can something just merely propositional, like?
Yeah. Well, that's what Vervaeke is getting at. He's like, these things can't.
But how could you believe in strong AI? He could not believe in it, because anything that's just about transistors and blah 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 is equivalent to propositional knowledge.
No. I follow that completely. And what Vervaeke's thing is he's saying that when we have autopoietic machines that are where they have an autopoietic body that's embodied and like bioelectrochemical, when they have a
they can't.
whole cell. You don't believe that we could get an autopoietic machine?
No, read the fucking McGilchrist book. He's not, he's saying actually there are no things. I mean, literally, it's like the transition from your parents to you is like, it's not
right. There's
a continuum. The whole world is
it's
a
not about
continuum.
survival. It's not about
And if you
survival. It's
build
about the
something,
continuation of life.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And if you build something, you put something into creation, which would not last because, I mean, metaphorically speaking, it cannot. So, for example, if all the parameters you exist of, like whatever enzymes, proteins, DNA, bloodstream, zinc, iron, everything, if I would turn it a little bit on one parameter, it would crash down probably, right?
Right.
And you cannot, and according to the atmosphere and the pressure of the air, blah blah blah. So it's too unstable. Would be too unstable. I mean, we are anti-fragile, actually. By the way.
Yeah.
This is writing.
Right. I understand.
We thrive on this.
Right. We seek beta. Like we need, and that's exactly what meaning is. Like that's the zone of proximal development. Is when you're actively seeking out volatility, right? The perfect amount of volatility to facilitate the continuation.
Okay,
of life.
I mean, it's just it's just intuitions, of course. It's just intuitions. But when I send you this fucking sea eagle, I mean, how the fuck? I mean, they talk. We're so far in artificial intelligence already. I mean, look at this fucking drones. Like they can do shit compared to this fucking sea eagle, which has like this tiny brain.
Yeah.
I mean, this tiny brain.
But you don't think that like we could inform biological material? Like we could build complex systems using biological material?
No.
Okay,
I don't think that we have anything comparable to the fucking sea eagle within
I
the
don't
next
think
4,000 years.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, we don't even have proper hands. We didn't even create artificial hands where the fingers are as fine-tuned as our fingers yet.
Yes. Okay, that's fine.
So we won't even have this in 100 years. Or in 200 years, I don't know how long. But they just talk about ChatGPT. Yeah, it's just fucking language.
No, ChatGPT. I'm not saying that ChatGPT is but like, I'm saying it's.
I mean, how stupid are we?
No, okay. Listen, my point I was trying to make is that there's knowing and there's understanding, and knowing. We all know this. We all know that knowing is more real than on. No,
most people don't know it. They think we already, like, machines are already better than animals.
No, I'm not talking about AI. I'm not talking about AI. I'm saying.
And even sorry, just to come back with ChatGPT. I mean, they're using so much computer power, like it's immense. It's like all the birds on planet Earth.
Right.
Probably, I don't know. I'm just imagining. I mean, that's the other thing. Is like the intelligence of the species or of animals, not just in the brain. It's not just in the central nervous system. It's like, no.
Yeah. Yes. It's embodied. It's knowing.
Teleological and everything.
Yeah. Okay. So what I was trying to get at before we got on this fucking AI thing is that knowing is a more fundamental reality than understanding, than propositional understanding. And I think that's kind of aligned with what you're saying about the AI. Like the ChatGPT is like intelligible propositional understanding.
We're not even. They don't even understand. It's not even worth calling understanding. It's not just not knowing. It's like. It's just. I mean, look. It's like okay.
It's intelligibility.
Yeah. Okay. You call it intelligibility. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Like, but what I'm trying to get at is the fundamental shift that needs to happen. I think in me, that's happening in me, that's an escape from Sam Harris Stan, is reshaping my understanding. Okay, so you have the embodied level of being, and then you have the propositional rational flatlands. Okay, and the knowing level, the embodied participatory knowing level, is always more fundamental than the understanding flatlands level. It's a more fundamental reality. the shift that's happening as I transition myself to a more theological ontology is that the understanding level is understanding that the knowing is more more fundamental. Okay, the knowing is has always been more fundamental, but there's been this dissonance in thinking that the propositional is more fundamental, and so actively reprogramming that, because it's the weird dissonance is
you're not there yet.
I know it, but I don't. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there more.
You're not living it yet. Okay.
Well, I am living it more and more and more.
I was not sure about that. I thought you lived it already.
I live there a lot, but I want to get to the ultimate ends of that, where I can, where I'm like fully participating in the body, like, and I see it, because now I see the weird thing is, normally we talk about how our propositional beliefs are in dissonance with our embodied behaviors, and how that indicates how generally that's a bad thing. Like, that indicates some internal dyssynchrony, right? Like,
this is sorry to just interrupt you, but this is like what there's a word for it. I should have learned it. Fuck, I should learn this word.
Dissonance?
Like no, yeah, it's something like dissonance, but it's like she's talking about body, mind, and spirit, or psyche, whatever. Like they're out of. So with dancing, you can mold them.
Yeah, you can calibrate them.
That they're
right. So
no, that for example, she describes, okay, somebody's asking you, you want to go for dinner tomorrow, and you think no, you say yes, and you feel maybe
weaker,
or whatever.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All three levels have something different, and the point is that they have the same.
Right.
So what you express, what you say, is like also being shown in your physical movements. And
right. So, but what I'm trying to get at here is that the dissonance between what you think or what you claim to believe and what you do is usually framed, and I think it's accurate to say usually that's a bad thing. But now what I'm noticing is I'm acting in ways, I mean, this is what faith is I'm acting in ways contrary to my propositional beliefs, right? And there's actually more moral integrity there. Like, I'm doing right. That's the process of taking semantic propositional knowledge and embodying it, is acting in ways you don't believe is actually constructive a lot of the time, because it's precognition. You start perceiving the world, you start perceiving yourself and the world based on the way you're acting, right? And so that process, I mean, and that's why transitioning to a theological worldview is this active participatory experience, and it requires a ecology of practices beyond just non-dual meditation. Like,
of course,
it's actually,
non-dual meditations are participatory.
Yeah, and so what am I getting at here is that I'm better than Sam Harris.
Okay, I have to go to sleep now.
Okay. You're gonna end it on that?
Yes. Did you record it?
Yeah, I did. Probably I'll just
save it in. I think it's a good one.
Okay, well, I'm gonna start starting next Sunday, planning the group discussions.
Which group discussions?
With the Symbolic World people.
Okay,
I met so many good people.
The topics. Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you also record it with them?
I haven't done a recorded. Well, you saw the one.
Do it, and then you send me.
Did you watch the 3-hour one that I sent you? It's really good.
Which one?
It was me. And
no,
3 other
where
guys.
Did you send it to me?
I'll send it here. I'll send it to you right now. Hold on.
Okay. Is it on YouTube already?
Yeah.
Cool.
Symbolism happens. The gathering. It's really good. We talk about Medusa, and then we talk about memes.
Nice. Okay, dokie.
It's really good.
Oh, what's a little? No.
We'll have better ones. But yeah, I think and I'm gonna make it like 4 hours on Sundays because there's people all over the world. So
course.
Facilitate, and then we steal the culture. Like, do you know? Here's what I genuinely believe this. Like, this corner of the internet, like, this is Peter. Like, this is the stone of the new. Like, this is the cornerstone of the new church. Like, Vervaeke, Peterson, Peugeot, and like the
Yeah, sure.
ecosystem around it. No, really, like, this is the second hinge of history. Like, we're at the epicenter. Like, we're at the foundation. Like, we're the most important people right now. Do you not believe that at least a little?
You're laughing at yourself about it. Okay, but
Come on, admit that you believe that at least a little.
a little. Oh, no, I'm tired. Okay, good night.